And welcome into the roundtable. And cargo theft is up. According to Cargo Net, 53% rise year over year from Q3 of last year to Q3 of this year. Obviously, it's becoming a problem as it is across most industries as well. Joining us to talk about it, we've got Mary O'Connell, our 3PL expert, from St. Louis, Missouri, and also Richie Daigle, an old friend of ours at Thieves, coming in as well. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. As mentioned, over a 50% increase Q3 of last year to Q3 of this year, year over year from Cargo Net. Obviously, a lot of big retailers have also had some theft issues that they've noted in their earnings reports even as well. Richie, let me just start with you. What are you seeing? What are you hearing in terms of this level of activity, and is it increasing as far as what you're seeing?
Yes, it is increasing. We're seeing more instances of it on our end. You know, we have a 24/7 monitoring team here, and they're uncovering these things weekly. But even in addition to outright theft, there are other security concerns that are also on the rise, kind of nefarious transloading, turning reefer units off, or setting them to automatic when they should be on continuous. There's a lot of creativity out in the marketplace for how to find ways to make extra money with the current scenario, with rates being what they are and inflation and the price of living going up as well. And that's, I think it's my personal thought there that's driving a lot of this behavior. But yeah, a lot of stuff going on. It's crazy times for sure.
Mary, what are you hearing and seeing in the industry in terms of, obviously, we're not just talking about somebody stealing a truck and then selling the contents and making money that way. There's obviously a lot more ways, as Richie just mentioned, to skin this cat, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it's never going to be, anytime there's an opportunity for someone to take advantage of a situation, 9 times out of 10, they're always going to take advantage. They're going to, not always act as the best interest. But I would definitely say it's on the rise. It's something we see every time that there's a down market. And like Richie said, it's not just, I'm going to stop a truck and, steal some cargo or some Xboxes or PlayStations off the back of a truck. It's a lot more than that. And, it's I don't want to say it's impressive because I don't want to give them credit, but it's actually pretty impressive, the lengths that they'll go to and, the plans that they have to execute. It's more than just, we're going to stop a random truck. Like, they typically know what's on the truck, where it's going. I mean, we've even seen cases of, criminals pretending to be a trucker or a trucking company or a carrier and completely diverting the shipment to a different intended receiver entirely, and now they have the entire truck's worth of stuff, and the driver might not think twice about the change in location, and they just have this stuff now.
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation. And we're not just talking about, double brokering and that. Obviously, that's a way to get into it, but also the others, even cyber attacks there as well. Richie, are there any kind of weaknesses that are being exploited here? Or is this just kind of, if someone just sees an opening somewhere, it's basically random and there's no real solution that's going to block out a certain percentage of the activity?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any way to do away with the problem, right? Like, It's always going to be an issue, right? It's what you call it, the second law of thermodynamics, entropy, whatever you like. You can get into all the reasons why this is always going to be something that we have to deal with on an ongoing basis. That being said, whatever solution you have in place or a company has in place is only as strong as the weakest link. And there are some pretty big links out there, and yesterday's sort of solutions are, full of weak links for today's environment, if you will. So yeah, I think, having hardware helps to be able to track freight independently and have more control of knowing what's going on with loads while they're in transit. Having software that can raise the overall awareness for people and kind of automate that awareness, if you will, to where they can rely on alerts to notify them when something's happening, as well as having teams of people that are able to take action in the moment. These are things that we've seen that have helped to kind of thwart a lot of these attempts. And like you all are saying, there's a lot of outright theft, and there's also a lot of people that are looking to justify behavior, based on for monetary reasons. They gotta make a buck, So Yeah, a couple different things there, but yeah, there's definitely weak links to take into consideration. And if you don't know what weak links you might have, it's good to kind of do an audit and see how everything is performing.
Definitely take a look at your entire operation there as well. Mary, do you see any, not necessarily glaring weaknesses? Obviously, if there are, then people have already gotten to them first, but anything that really kind of needs to be looked at in terms of securing as much freight as possible? Granted, you can't solve the entire problem.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, from like Richie was saying, kind of like how when you check a bag at the airport, it's common now to put an air tag or a tracker on it, just so you know where it happens. Putting something inside your actual shipment is a great way to know exactly where it's going, to verify that it is matching what, where a carrier might say that they are. That's kind of a good insurance policy. And then also from the brokerage perspective, when you have new brokers, you want to make it part of their training. And if you don't have training, well, then consider that an open door for someone just to walk through and take advantage of. So make sure that, this is part of the training. If they do have someone call and say, oh, I'm the carrier on this, and they're not validating carriers, or they're not, validating the history of someone, or even just checking with insurance or anything like that, it's something that you want to make sure. Just a simple independent call to someone that, you might already deal with. You just want to double check that one phone call. No one's ever going to be upset that they got an extra phone call just to double check something, when the opposite could be, we lost an entire shipment of freight. So even if it seems ridiculous, even if it seems overkill, just always kind of foster that environment of just one more step, just take an extra minute or two and just validate anything that comes across your desk or that might seem out of place or a little suspicious.
Richie, is there any concern as to how this has evolved? I know you guys at Thieves, obviously, with the program and the hardware that you've got, it can certainly help in freight theft, but also obviously if freight is misplaced, you can still locate it there as well. But if you look at it in terms of how this has evolved, have you had to, is Thieves looking at how to evolve its own technology to try and match some of the ways, not all of them, but some of the ways that the freight is being procured by nefarious means?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, right now, I think our focus is doing all that we can with hardware and software and people to help more and more freight get to where it's supposed to go on time and in full. That's our charge as a company. Right. I mean, our focus is going to be on raising that awareness on where freight is located at any point in time, as well as the conditions, the temperature, the humidity, how it's being handled, our doors open, helping that awareness boil to the surface and automating that awareness with alerts. And then having a people component that can take action in the moment. That's our focus right now. In regards to procurement, there's some other companies that are doing some cool things that are complementary. And I think it is good to have redundancy in systems. If you have a visibility tech stack or a security tech stack, to weave in redundancy, that is how you're going to build resilience against this type of behavior out in the marketplace. And having different types of solutions that have specific niche applications and focuses weave together can create a really powerful overall system and solution. Yeah.
Mary, I know Richie's got a good solution, at least in certain ways with Thieves there, but what do you see as perhaps other solutions? Obviously, prevention being the big one. Obviously, if you're doing things right, you don't need to change anything, but what do you see are some solutions that you can apply?
I mean, obviously working with great partners, you want to work with, maybe a tracking partner like Thieves, but you also just making sure that you do have good partnerships, whether that's with your carriers or your shippers. If you have a shipper that loves to just randomly add locations and not tell anyone, maybe just say like, hey, you have to stop doing that, because that's how someone could potentially get involved in and steal some of your freight. As if the shipper's known to just add locations on a whim, just tell them to stop, because that's horrible for everyone involved. But realistically, it's really just about that communication and those relationships and making sure that you have a good partner. Like, there are some cargo security partners But really, honestly, just leveraging those relationships. And the biggest thing is just training everyone in your organization to just always be a little suspicious of people, because you never know when one of your longtime carriers knows that a shipper is notorious for switching locations. And they're like, oh, I'm just going to go ahead and take it to this new location a mile down the road because they open this as their holiday warehouse, their peak season warehouse all the time. So especially as we're heading into peak season, even though it is supposed to be muted, a lot of shippers that do, some of that direct to consumer stuff, they will open a secondary warehouse, usually a mile or two down the street from where they already are. And casually not tell anyone about it. So if you get something like that, the biggest thing is just to call your shipper and say, hey, is this real?
Do your due diligence, basically, is the best operation, and then obviously do work as much as you can in terms of the technology as well. Richie and Mary, thanks so much for joining us for our roundtable.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll take a short break and come back and wrap up this edition of FreightWaves Now after this.